Julius Caesar, a wonderful play by William Shakespeare. Usually, William Shakespeare's plays are of two types, comedy and tragedy, and this one is a tragedy. It has a historical perspective. Now, how much of this is fiction and how much of this is fact is anybody's guess. The actual assassination of Julius Caesar took place in 44 BCE. There are many themes in this story, but the most important is monarchy versus republic. Now, Rome, the kingdom of Rome, was for namesake a republic. They had a senate. They had senators who would make decisions on behalf of the citizens. But they were all aristocrats. Now, Julius Caesar was becoming more popular, and during the civil war, he was winning every battle and could soon become the emperor of Rome, which would be the end of republicanism, and he would have absolute monarchy. He would be a dictator. Would that be good or bad? Well, that depends on the qualities of Julius Caesar. Now, there's a saying that absolute power corrupts one absolutely. There were some supporters of monarchy. We have Antony, who is a very close friend of Caesar. But there were some opponents of monarchy, namely Brutus, again a very intimate friend of Caesar. Caesar could trust his life in Brutus's hands. Brutus was a very honorable man. He was very popular in Rome. He had a lineage of very reputable people. His ancestors were revered throughout Rome. And though he loved Caesar, he loved Rome more. So he was worried that if Caesar would become the king, then he might be a tyrant. Cassius is the antagonist of the play. He's the one who plots the assassination of Caesar. Not just because he loves to be in a republic, but he cannot stand the thought of Caesar dominating over him. He doesn't want to live under the rule of a single man, especially Caesar, whom he considered to be a very weak person. And he had hatched a plan along with 60 conspirators. Many of them were senators. But he knew that he needs the support of Brutus, Marcus Brutus, because he knew that even if he succeeded in assassinating Caesar without Brutus's assistance, what after that? In order to convince the citizens that this act was for their good, they needed Brutus in their side. He knew this very well. He knew that Brutus's involvement would add righteousness in their act, and the people would perceive them as having done a favor by killing Julius Caesar. So he started planning how to convince Brutus. He's a very cunning person. On the other hand, Brutus is not so cunning. He's so pure-hearted that it backfires. Even though he's a great person, but because he doesn't know how to win a war at all costs, they lose. Brutus made some big blunders, which we'll study in this drama. And it's sad to see that such an honorable person ended up on the losing side and on the wrong side. Actually, we can't really say clearly who is right and who is wrong, because even Antony was not bathed in milk. He was also power hungry and manipulative. The way Shakespeare has built this story, has narrated the entire story, and built the character sketch of each of these characters is fascinating. So totally we have 5 acts. In Act 1, Scene 1, we start with Caesar's triumph. So Caesar was at the height of his glory. He had just defeated Pompey's son. And by defeating Pompey's son, he had put the end to the civil wars, and his path towards kingship was now clear, because there was no other challenge remaining. There are celebrations in the street of Rome in order to welcome, anticipating the arrival of Caesar. We have 2 tribunes, that is officers, Flavius and Marinus. Now, they are quite irked by the celebration of these people, because the the public is so fickle-minded. Some years ago, they were worshipping Pompey, and now they are worshipping Caesar. So there's an interesting exchange between the citizens and the tribunes. The tribunes scold them and tell them to get back to work. This clearly shows that there is a conflict. On one hand, the public is easily swayed and are eager and would willingly let Julius Caesar become their king. And on the other hand, there are some people who want Rome to stay a republic. The second scene, the Feast of Lupercal. This happens in the mid of February. Since Caesar and his wife Calpurnia did not have a child, they had instructed Antony that during his race, during the festival, he should touch Calpurnia. It was believed, it was a superstition, that this would help them have a child. Also, Antony presented the crown to Caesar thrice, and Caesar smartly refused on all three occasions because he did not want to come across as a power-hungry and a greedy person. He was willing to wait for the right opportunity and then become the king. At that time, Cassius speaks to Brutus. He shares his fear that Julius Caesar is a very ambitious person, and in the name of expansion of Rome, he might bring about the downfall of the citizens. Brutus assured him that as long as he's alive, he would do everything possible for the welfare of the Romans. So this was the first step that Cassius took towards winning Brutus's support. Cassius also describes to Brutus how weak Caesar was. He narrates how a few years ago he had saved Caesar's life, and that Caesar was not perfectly healthy either. He often used to get fits. He had epilepsy. So was he really suited to rule whole of Rome, a single person? In this scene, there's a soothsayer who warns Caesar, beware the Ides of March. That is the 15th of March. Now this is one of the various warnings which Caesar gets and he ignores, which ultimately leads to his assassination. He seems to be too arrogant. Perhaps he thinks that he's immortal. Act 1, Scene 3, the storm. So now we fast forward to the night before the assassination. Till now, the plan is set. The conspirators meet, and there is a storm. The storm and other physical elements forebodes some evil. Cassius, Cicero, and Casca have a dialogue about their interpretations of these sights. Some very weird sights like a slave with burning arms, a rampant lion near the Capitol, owls hooting and shrieking at midday in the marketplace. These were all omens, what was going to happen the next day. Now Act 2, Scene 1, Brutus joins the conspiracy. Now in order to ensure Brutus's support, Cassius has a plan. He has written letters urging Brutus to take steps to ensure that Rome stays a republic. And these are fake letters on behalf of the public. And these are thrown into Brutus's house or kept in places where Brutus could find them, so that he would feel that the public wants him to join the conspiracy. So they all meet at Brutus's house to finalize the plan. Now Cassius suggests that the next morning, after assassinating Caesar, they should kill Antony as well, so that there can be no uprising against them. However, Brutus says that Antony is no threat, he's a good person, killing Caesar would be enough, after which they would convince the audience that what they had done was for the benefit of the Republic of Rome. Now that was a big mistake that Brutus did. He overrid Cassius' decision, and Cassius couldn't help it. He couldn't go against Brutus. He was a very important element in the conspiracy, and this would come to bite them in the whatever. Brutus was very tensed after everybody left. Portia asked him, what is the matter? Now Portia is a very intelligent, beautiful lady. She's a daughter of Cato. She's also very popular. But Brutus decides not to share the plan with her. So these are the characters mentioned, these are the conspirators mentioned in the drama. All 60 names have not been given, you need to know only these names. Act 2, Scene 2, Calpurnia's Dream. So it is the Ides of March. Caesar is supposed to go to the capital, where probably he will be crowned by Antony and he'll become king. He doesn't know what awaits him. He doesn't know that there are conspirators waiting to stab him in the back. But Calpurnia, Caesar's wife, got some dreams which represented bad omens. So he told Caesar not to go out on that day. Caesar did not believe in such superstitions, but for his wife's peace of mind, he decided not to go. Now, Cassius Brutus was there, and he could not let the entire plan to fail. So he interpreted Calpurnia's dream in a different way. When Calpurnia said that she saw Caesar's body with wounds, blood pouring out of it like fountains, bathing the hands of the people, Cassius said that this is a good omen. It means that Caesar is willing to give his all for the welfare and prosperity of the public. Now Caesar was quite impressed, egoistical as he is. Cassius also mocked him for believing his wife's superstitions and staying at home. Caesar could not tolerate this. His masculinity was questioned. So he ignored his wife's requests and he went to the capital. Act 2, Scene 3, Artemidorus' warning. Now, Artemidorus was a common citizen, an honest citizen. So when Caesar was on his way, he tried to stop him and gave him a letter begging him not to go to the capital. In fact, even mentioning the list of conspirators who were plotting against him. But he decided to ignore the letter and Caesar went ahead. Now, Act 2, Scene 4, Portia's fears. Portia is also very anxious at home. She had never seen her husband, Brutus, so tensed. She had a feeling that something bad is going to happen to Brutus. She tells a servant, Lucius, to rush and find out what Brutus is up to and share her fears with him. But Lucius assures her that there's nothing to worry about. Act 3, Scene 1, Caesar's assassination. It's strange that the title of the play is Julius Caesar, who's going to die in Act 3, Scene 1 itself. And the rest of the story would talk about the consequences of that. When Caesar sees the soothsayer, he tells him the Ides of March has come, as if saying that, see, nothing happened. But the soothsayer says, yes, but it has not gone yet, meaning the day isn't over yet. And as he's discussing certain matters in the capital, one by one, the conspirators stab him. He died because of 23 stabbings. And the most painful for him would have been the one from Brutus. Because when he saw that Brutus stabbed him, he couldn't believe it. He said, Et tu, Brut? Meaning, you too, Brutus? Then I should die. Because he lost all hope. If the person he trusts the most, the person he values the most, has decided to kill him, then what's the point in living? And that's the end of Julius Caesar. The news spreads outside the Senate, spreads outside the capital. There is fear and chaos outside. Antony is also scared. He sent somebody to ask the conspirators if he could meet them. They allow him to come inside. When Antony sees Caesar's dead body, he is grief-stricken. He laments the loss of his friend. But seemingly, he gets over it and shakes the hands with the conspirators, stating that surely they have good reason for doing what they did. Brutus assures Antony that whatever they did was for the good of Rome. Antony again acts or pretends that he's reluctantly willing to accept it, and he has a request that after they speak to the audience, they speak to the citizens explaining why they assassinated Julius Caesar, he would like to speak a few words just before the funeral of Julius Caesar because he was a close friend. Cassius was against this, but Brutus allowed Antony. Again, a big mistake, because Antony is a very smart guy. He's a very good orator. His words have the power to influence the mob, which we will see shortly. He's warned not to blame the conspirators for anything. But the way he speaks really turns the tables on the conspirators. Then the conspirators leave, and a messenger from Octavius Caesar, who was a nephew of Julius Caesar, comes stating that Octavius was about to enter Rome. Antonio sends a message across that it was not the right time, he'll have to wait for some more time. Now Antony has already started planning how to recapture Rome from the conspirators. We will see later that they would form a triumvirate, that is Antony, Octavius Caesar and Lepidus, and they would battle against the armies of the conspirators, and ultimately they will win. There will be no republic left, it would be a monarchy in the end. Act 3, Scene 2, Caesar's funeral. So first, Brutus speaks to the public. He explains to them that he loved Caesar, he was a brave person, he had done many good things for Rome, but he was overambitious and it was important for them to slay him for the welfare of the public of Rome. And people believed him, he was an honorable person, so they bought his story. And then Antonio took the stage. And the way he attracted the attention of the public is fascinating. The way the dialogues are said and the setting of the play really gets you hooked. He uses irony to deliver his message. He says that Caesar was ambitious, but he was ambitious because he wanted prosperity in the kingdom. But Brutus says that it was correct to kill Caesar, and Brutus is an honorable man. Caesar loved his fellow citizens. Whatever he did was for their welfare. In fact, he had left a will that after his death, the royal gardens would become accessible to the public, and a lot of wealth from the treasury would be distributed among the masses. If they could read the will, they would feel ashamed of themselves. But Brutus says that it was right to kill Caesar, and Brutus is an honorable man. He repeats this, but he's an honorable man so many times that people start questioning, is he truly an honorable man? And in the end, he shows the dead body of Julius Caesar, he shows the wounds, and he shows the holes in the robe of Julius Caesar where he was stabbed. And people, they are not reasonable. They are swayed by emotions. And that's the difference. Brutus thought that if he explains in a reasonable manner, if he appeals to the logic of the people, he would get away with this crime. But Antonio knew how to manipulate the mood of the masses, use emotions as a powerful tool to turn the mob against the conspirators, and that's what happened. The mob became mad and they started destroying everything. The conspirators had to run out of that place. In Act 3, Scene 3, we see some evidence of the mob violence. They were so hell-bent on taking revenge for Caesar's death that they even killed Cinna the poet. Now he was not the Cinna who was a conspirator, but the mob did not care. They were just bloodthirsty. In Act 4, Scene 1, we see the triumvirates meeting. The three of them met to decide how to divide the kingdom among the three of them after winning. Now here we see another side of Antony. He tells Octavius that Lepidus is not worthy to be a ruler. So after using him to win the battles, they would cut him off. They would cut him out of the deal. So this showed that though Antony wanted to take revenge for Caesar's death. He was also motivated to grab power at this point. Act 4, Scene 2. Brutus and Cassius meet at Sardis, that is far away from Rome. They are planning the battle to overthrow the triumvirate. But again, there is argument between Brutus and Cassius. However, they do so privately because not only are they co-conspirators, they are brothers-in-law. Cassius was the husband of Brutus's half-sister. Act 4, Scene 3, the quarrel and Caesar's ghost. All was not well with their armies. They had different opinions about how to attack, how to win the war. Now Brutus was upset that some of the soldiers had taken bribes. He was against corruption. Whereas Cassius told him that at the time of war, he should ignore all these small matters and focus only on winning. They could not afford to lose a single soldier. Brutus also informs Cassius that his wife Portia was dead. She had committed suicide because for such a long time now, she was worried about Brutus's whereabouts. How is he? What would be the consequence? How will the war culminate? She could not bear so much stress. And Brutus neglected his wife because he was so focused on winning the war, saving Rome, that he did not realize what Portia was going through. Brutus had grown impatient. He wanted to finish this war. He wanted to attack the triumvirate army at Philippi. Cassius said that that's not advisable. There's a trap out there. They should wait where they are and let the enemy come to them. So again, there was a difference of opinion. But ultimately, again, Brutus prevailed and they decided to go and attack at Philippi. That night, Caesar's ghost appeared. Maybe Brutus was hallucinating, and Caesar's ghost warned him that he would have his revenge. So it's almost as if Brutus was on the verge of giving up, and he was feeling guilty, and he wanted to die. And that is why he had become fearless and wanted to just go and attack. Next, Act 5, Scene 1, confrontation at Philippi. So before the battle begins, there was a meeting between the two parties. Antony accused Brutus and Cassius of being hypocrites. In the name of republicanism, they simply wanted power. They were cowards, and very deceitfully they had killed Julius Caesar. On the other hand, Brutus and Cassius accused Antony of being power hungry, of not being a man of his word, because he gave him an opportunity to join them and speak to the public, and he used that stage to brainwash the public and later attack them. Then Brutus and Cassius had a very emotional farewell because they were not sure if they were going to meet again. It was Cassius' birthday that day, and he thought that it could be his death day as well. When he asked Brutus that if they lost, what would he do? Brutus said that he did not believe in committing suicide, but one thing was sure, he was not going to live in chains. Act 5, Scene 2, the Battle of Philippi. Now, an actual battle cannot be shown on stage, so this is just one glimpse of what would happen in the war. We see Brutus sending a message to Cassius, who is fighting from some other area. He believes that they have an element of surprise. He should attack Octavius' army. Act 5, Scene 3, Cassius' death. Now, on one hand, Brutus' army is winning against Octavius' army. However, Cassius' army is losing against Antony's army. But Cassius doesn't know that there is still hope. Now, the problem is that after winning, Brutus' soldiers were not coming to the rescue of Cassius, rather they were looting. They had become indisciplined, allowing Antony's army to encircle Cassius. Cassius wanted to know the status of Brutus. So he sent a soldier, Titinius, to find out what's the next plan. He also asked the soldier Penderus to mount on his horse and check what response Titinius was getting, because he needed urgent answers. Now Penderus saw that as soon as Titinius reached Brutus' army, he was surrounded by some soldiers who were jumping with joy. So Penderus reported this to Cassius. Now Cassius misunderstood this. He was being pessimistic. He thought that Titinius had been captured and all hope was lost. So he told Penderus to kill him. Penderus stabs him as commanded, and Cassius dies, not knowing that Brutus was actually winning out there. When Titinius returns to give the good news that Brutus's army had won over there, he finds Cassius' dead body and he's so saddened that he kills himself. And then Brutus arrives and he sees Cassius' dead body, but he has no time to weep. He has to continue with the battle. Act 5, Scene 4, Lucilius' attempt to save Brutus. This is one more short scene during the battle. Antony's soldiers capture Lucilius, who they assume is Brutus. So Lucilius is pretending to be Brutus so that Brutus could escape. But Antony recognizes that this is not Brutus, it is Lucilius, so he doesn't kill him. In the last scene, Act 5, Scene 5, Brutus' death. Finally, the enemy soldiers are closing in. Brutus knows that single-handedly he can no longer win the war. That night, Caesar's ghost comes once again. So now he knows he's doomed. He doesn't want to be captured. So he wants somebody to kill him. He requests many soldiers, but they all refuse, except Strato. So even Strato doesn't want to stab him. So he tells Strato to just hold the sword and he would fall on it. And that's how Brutus ends his life. And finally, the triumvirate enter the tent, see Brutus' dead body, and Antony says that here lies the noblest Roman who ever lived. The triumvirate had won the battle, but Brutus had won honor. And I see parallels between this story and Mahabharata, because even there, an honorable man named Karna had to take sides with an evil person, Duryodhan, and end up defeated.